I wanted to just give you kind of a quick rundown of how to install extension jambs, which are the jambs that extend from the window to the face of the sheetrock, right? Because if you were just put casing on, you wouldn't have any. I'm going to use this piece of trim as an extension jamb here, but you can see this will bring it out flush with the sheetrock. So this is called an extension jamb because it extends it out. So we've got the window already foamed. This window is actually already here. It's just a small little simple slider window. But what the first thing you need to do is you need to go around and you need to clean it up. Make sure the window's clean. You know, you don't want to have a bunch of buildup on there because your jambs won't sit flat. And then once you have it all cleaned up, you want to get the distance, the measurement from the window out to the sheetrock. And you really do want this to try to be as close as you can. You can use a straight edge or something like this here. And what we're going to do is you're going to butt your tape measure up tight against the jamb. You probably can't see that very well. But you're going to butt your tape up against the window. And then I've got a straight edge right here. And it looks like it's 3 5/8. Okay, and you want to check it at all the different corners because it varies. It's going to vary from one side to the next. I know this side, I already checked this side. This side's actually 3.5. And again, that's because somebody, installed it, and who knows, they just probably didn't take the time to make it super straight and flat. And it's hard, you got buildup on the outside. This one is actually closer to 3/4. That's shy 3/4. And then this one I think was closer to 5/8 again. So yeah, this one was 5/8. And so what I decided I was going to go with, I'm kind of using up scrap stuff that I've got because it's just a small window here. I'm going to actually go with 3 5/8. And on the bottom here, I'm actually going to cheat it a little bit. And I'm going to go with this piece right here because I need one more piece. It's actually not quite long enough either, but I'm going to use it. I'm going to fit it inside to inside. Okay, we've talked about the width, the depth of the jamb material. The next thing is measuring the actual lengths and sides of the extension jambs. In this case, because I got some buildup and stuff out here, and we got plenty of coverage in here, you can really kind of pick any number. I'm going to actually use this little groove right here to measure from, but I want to know how long, and I usually cut the head piece, and the bottom piece, I usually cut those longer, and then I usually cut the sides shorter. Don't ask me why. That's just kind of how I've always seen it. So I'm going to measure from right here, and I'm going to go to that other group, the other line on the other side, and I get 23 3/4. So that's the length that I want this top and this bottom to be. And then I want the sides. The sides are going to be, if I measured from this line again down here up to here, it's 22 3/4 minus, I'm going to minus the thickness of my jamb material, which is almost 3/4 of an inch. So it's going to be less 1.5 inches. The sides are going to be less 1.5 inches. So, okay, so we talked about it in the bathroom. We wanted our measurement to be what? 3 5/8. Yeah, it's 3 5/8. Okay. So what I do is I set my fence. Okay. You can adjust this back and forth, but I'm setting it so that it's to the inside of the blade there, 3 5/8, and then make sure you have a good blade in there when you're cutting, especially when you're doing finish work. So what I did was, remember how I was telling you there are actually different dimensions in there as far as the window goes. I'm actually using, again, I'll show you what I'm doing here. Okay, right here, this is the side piece, and then this is the bottom. Okay, some of you might laugh at me because it's getting kind of scabby, but it's not gonna matter too much. So I'm using some MDF stuff that I had. I put that Sherwin-Williams cabinet grade paint on the surface of this. But the bottom, like I said, was 3.5 inches. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna line up these two pieces flush when I nail them together. And I'm using this piece was too short, so I actually ran this side a little longer, and you won't see it because there's gonna be a reveal, or the casing is going all the way around. But you can see this side is gonna be too long right here, because this is 3 5/8, 3 5/8, 3 5/8, and then this piece is 3.5. So I couldn't. So I'm making it work. Okay. Again, we're doing this on a budget. rental. So I'm going to rip the back of this piece to taper down to 3.5 inches. I'm not going to rip it. I'm going to actually take it. I have a tool that I'll show you, but I marked it right there. So that's 3.5 to nothing. And then the only thing you're going to see when we're done is there's going to be a tiny little gap on the back side right there between the window. But I'm going to flush these sides up right here. So I'll show you that next. Okay, what I'm going to show you is this is a little hand planer, and you can adjust it. You can adjust it so that it takes off a 64th to a 32nd, you know, to 3/64ths to a 1/16 of an inch. But we're going to start with a 32nd because we don't want to get crazy. We only have an 1/8 remove. And I actually took the guard off there, the guide on the side, so I can hit anywhere in the middle. And I took this little thing on the back and I taped it so that when I go, I don't have to worry about hitting that spot. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start on this end, okay, full, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of pull off at the end so I don't keep taking it off all the way across. You know, I just kind of pulled it off at the end there. And I'm going to try to go to a different spot. So now I'm closer to that line. I want to keep going on that end. I'm just kind of pulling off at the end, and I'm going to do one more pass, which should get us close to that mark that I had. See, and then I just kind of pull off at the end, and now you can see I just took about 1/8 of an inch off. So that should be 3.5 now, and it tapers to 3 5/8. So okay, so then once I did that, now I'm going to take my little orbital sander, and I'm just going to kind of get rid of some of those little ridges where I pulled off. There, now that's a lot. That's pretty straight when you look down the edge of that board, at least on the face side. This is MDF, it works pretty good. Okay, so now that I've got it, I'm going to line them up and I'm going to use my 1/4" crown stapler. And I'm going to put a couple staples in. And then I'm going to, like I said, I'm flushing the back sides up here. Only got a couple staples. I'm probably going to have to switch over to something different. Right, so I flush this back. Again, they're flush all around. And I'm flushing it up there, making sure it's square. And I'm making sure that I shoot so that I'm in the center of it, so that I'm not coming out the front or the back. And then I'm going to flip this thing over. I'm going to set it on this cardboard this way. And then I actually went this way because I had the material. Then I'm flushing that up again. So you could also use a pin nailer. It doesn't hold it together quite as good as a crown stapler does. The nice thing about that is that crown stapler was kind of split, and this is just that MDF stuff, so it's not super sturdy. Again, we're not going to have a ton of stuff pulling it apart. You could use a bigger finish nail, but that MDF was splitting a little bit. But again, our reveal is going to be over here, and I only go for about an 1/8 inch reveal, which is that's what it's called, where the trim meets up to the jamb. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to show you how you can fasten your extension jambs in there. Remember, I measured from this little groove that was already in here to the top of that groove. And so what I'm doing is I'm actually putting shims in the opposite way like this. So they're basically flush with that line right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing. So then I can put a nail through here down, and this shim will hold that right at that exact spot so that I know I have the right margin there. Then I have another shim that I cut. I'm going to put in sideways right here. And then I can always slip, because it's tapered this way, is tapered back the other way. This is just a shim I had laying around anyway that I kind of custom made earlier for when I was doing cabinets. So I could put this in this way like this, and then later on I could slip in a shim going back that way if I need to adjust it back and forth. But I know I measured it from right about there to there. And so again, I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to put them near the top like that, near the top corner, and that'll hold this corner and that corner, and then these two down here will hold those other corners. And then once you start putting your trim on, that all holds it in place and straightens out your jamb. So I'm going to just tack this in here for now, just so that it's there and it doesn't fall down. And then I'm going to put another one right here. Again, just kind of just to hold that in place. And then I can slip another shim in there if I want. And I don't need to do that on the bottom because those aren't going to fall. So now we should be able to put our jamb. Johnny Fitz thing. Oh, I see we're hitting the sheetrock a little bit. Okay. So the other thing that I did while you guys weren't watching is I actually put a mark on the inside. I put a center mark on all of these, on all the jambs, and I put a center mark on the window. So you can kind of get an idea. Remember we put those blocks up there? So you can see there's a little play right there. This side will be good if I just put a nail tight right there. And then I can add a little shim on that side before I nail it. But if you remember, I put one up there. What I'm doing now is I tacked this one corner because that was good. I looked at my two center marks, and then I put a nail into that one shim that was going that way. There was a little bit of space on this side, so I can add a shim on that corner to give me the gap, to fill the gap that I want to fill. Actually, I'm going to take a little bit off. I should find a safe spot to do this instead of just using my leg. And I don't want to go into the floor either. Okay, so I'm going to put this one on this side right here. And that's giving me some pressure right there. I'm going to tack that side. Again, I'm looking at my mark right here. And I'm still centered there. I'm going to put a nail right here in those shims. Okay, and it's nice and tight along the window. Okay, now I lifted that up just a touch, so now I can put one of my other little shims in there to hold this side up a little bit. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, now that was tight there. And then I want to put one more shim on this side over here. I'm going to take I shimmed in these two spots, and I shimmed up here, and I put nails into the wall that way and down that way. So now the extension jamb is tight in there, and it's centered in there, so it all looks, the margins, we're really looking to make sure that the gaps all the way around are the same. You don't want to have it so your jamb is all over the place. You kind of want it centered in there. And then this will lift up a little bit when we put a piece of casing on. But you can see that's what we're going for. What you want, you can see if you put this wood shim on there, it's sticking out a hair. It's actually better to probably stick out just a hair than to be in a little bit. It's a little harder to hide when it's in a little bit. This one's real nice, sticking out just a fuzz. Right there is good. Again, you're just looking to see, that's what you want. Remember, this is the one we tapered right here. We tapered it from 3 5/8 to 3.5 down here. This is 3.5, 3 5/8. I could have done that on all of them. This one's a little shy. This one's going to be a little shy. I'll show you a little trick for that. One thing that'll help on that is if you kind of bang in on that sheetrock a little bit. It'll help so that it's not sticking out, holding the trim out. We got 3-inch trim, so we have plenty of coverage. But it's actually already good right there anyway, so it's literally just that corner. And that kind of helps to get you a little closer. And then, now we'll cut our trim. Okay, so our extension jamb is in. I do have to trim off these shims. This is a good tool for that right here. And if I just go like this, I like to kind of go from this.
What is it?
What's the official? I call it like a fine tool, but I think it's an oscillating tool is what it's actually called. The blade just goes back and forth really fast. We called it the fine tool, but that's not what it's called. So and I kind of started there and tapered it back so that it wouldn't, just to make sure it's not going to stick out past it. Okay, after you get that cut, these are pretty handy little tools for marking your margins. Some people wouldn't mark them. I do just because you get a little nicer job, I feel like, and it's easier to measure. I've got mine set for a strong 1/8. So an 1/8 of an inch strong is basically like a 32nd over an 1/8 of an inch. That's what I'm shooting for. So you can see I have an 1/8 inch. By the time I mark it with my pencil, I've got a strong 1/8. It's shy of a 3/16, but it's a little more than an 1/8. I mark it right here. Make sure your pencil's nice and sharp. Then you mark it this way. Now when you have the corner, and that's what I was saying earlier with these little cracks and stuff that I got, and even just the way these boards are cut right here, you're not going to see much by the time we're done. I normally do like it to be like this on the bottom, but again, I was trying to make it work. So we'll get this corner marked. I like to put like one mark on in the middle too, because I'll put another nail in the middle of all that, and it'll straighten out those jambs. Now that we have the margins, okay, all marked out, we got to get some lengths for our trim. We're doing a very it's kind of a trendy way to do trim right now. It's not a super difficult way to do trim. It's about as easy a trimming as you can do. It's just square cuts, but we're going with the short piece is going to fit in between, and then you'll see it, but they'll run by at the end. So what I'm doing is I'm actually measuring from the inside to inside, and I've got 22 3/8, and you got to be real precise from inside to inside, 22 3/8. Okay, and then I know with my margins that I have set that means I got to add 5/16 of an inch. Okay, and that will give me a strong 1/8 on either side. So that would be 22 11/16. So I'm going to cut that bottom piece at 22 11/16. Then it'll stick out past a strong 1/8 on either side. So this is the bottom piece that I wanted right here. If you look again, you can see those pencil marks right there. I cover that pencil mark so you don't see it, and then we should be lined up with that pencil mark and with that pencil mark, and we are perfectly. So when I added that 5/16 of an inch, that was the right amount. So then I'm going to grab my nailer. I've got a pretty long nail in there, probably longer than I should have in there. It's a 2-inch nail, which is more than enough. I like to stay a little away from the corner just so that I don't I don't split it out. I like this MDF stuff in that it does give a nice little hole there, and then I make my way across. I find that next mark. This is your chance to straighten it. Even though it looks crazy crooked to that line right there, that's okay because I know this belly's down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it down to here, put another nail. Okay, and then I'm going to come down here. Now I can pull that, and I'm actually straightening out the jamb a little bit. And now I come up to my mark down here. Okay, so now I've straightened out my jamb. I've got a nice reveal all the way around. And again, now I can put I should go up a little bit because there's probably no backing. So I'm going to come up a little bit so I know I'm hitting that bottom. There you go, there's the first piece. Alright, now that we got this bottom piece in, because of the style that we're doing here, this piece is going to run past, down flush with this, and it's going to run just up to that little marking on that margin that we had right there. So I'm going to hook on this bottom piece of trim, and I'm going to measure up to that mark that I put up there, which is 24 7/8 of an inch. Okay, and I should check and make sure it should be the same, but make sure it's going to verify it's the same, and it is. Okay, with measuring, it's important sometimes, like you saw me just reaching from down here and trying to look up there. The more you can get if your eyes are lined up with it, the more accurate you're going to be. So if I'm up here now, I can really see that's close. A lot of times we're lazy, so we're like, yeah, that's close. Make sure you get a good look so you get the right measurement. What I'm doing is I'm actually flushing this, I'm feeling this on the bottom, flushing this piece up, and then I'm checking, and it looks like we're pretty darn close up at the top. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it square here first, okay, and then I'm going to put a nail right there, and then, like I said, I'm going to straighten out this piece of jam. I'm going to put a nail right there, and then I'm going to pull it back to straighten it, and put one more right there. Now, if this is shy too, it's better to hold it flush down at the bottom, if it is, and your margin will just be a hair less than what it was supposed to be, which is not the end of the world. Last step, we're going to measure across the top here, okay? And it is 29 and I would say a quarter. And what we want is we want a 1/4 inch overhang, because that's the look that we're going for, a 1/4 inch overhang on either side. So we want it to stick over a quarter and a quarter that way. So if we add a 1/2 inch to that, it's 29 3/4, okay? So now we go cut that one. Trim, a nice saw to use that I found is nice to use is a 10-inch, a smaller 10-inch miter saw. Actually, those bigger ones, there's a little bit more room in there for some play. So again, you want to get a nice sharp blade. This one isn't crazy sharp anymore, but one with more teeth, made for cutting fine material. What I like to do when I cut the trim is I have a small mark on my board. That's the side that I want this side, so I want to keep my blade to that side right there. And what I do is I'm pushing with this hand right here, with my left hand against the fence and pushing down. But I also have it so that I can make some minor movements with my hand like this. I like to hold the guard up so I can see. And then I start it, and you can get it close, and then I'm sliding with my left hand. So I just split that line, and I use this hand to make like I have my hand resting on this, pushing back, and I can make small adjustments. I think this is one of the things that probably is the hardest, is people are like, you're going like this. I get my hand right there like that, and I push down, and I get this blade up like that, and then I can move the piece as I go. And I start this way, and I just kind of inch my way closer and closer until I finally am where I want to be. So again, this is just a really simple way of trimming a window. Normally you'd have 45s. Historically, you'd have kind of that more fancy way of finishing. What you're looking to is, when you're looking now, I can see that everything's nice and tight against the wood here. We don't have any huge gaps there. Our margin's nice and clean. We can come back now with some wood putty and fill in those holes. But otherwise, you can see everything's nice and tight against here. The only spot that's a little off is right back there on the inside, and that's because I used purposely a scrap piece that was a little short. We could run, I don't love running a bead of caulk because I just think it's sloppy, but I put it on the bottom here so that really you wouldn't see it, because it's at a height where it's harder to see down like that, but everything else looks really nice and clean. If I was doing this for something real custom fancy, I would have spent more time to make sure that piece was longer.